me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Let's go. I'm about to go off like a weapon. Fuel to the top, gotta fill it up engine. In my thoughts up.
Welcome back, everybody. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you think about this video. Today we're going to be talking a quick little bit about Robbie Anderson and why I think we should be excited to have him on this team right now. Robbie Anderson has been with a couple teams in his career, and honestly, he's done pretty well for his career. And what we can really look at is if you take a look at his statistics, only the last couple of years has he started to decline. And honestly, throughout his whole career, he was a pretty good player. And I think a lot of Dolphins fans, you know, I made a video and said Braxton Berrios would be the number 3 receiver, but I might take that back, as in he might be the slot receiver. But Robbie Anderson is making a lot of plays in minicamp, and there's reasons why. So you have to look at, he was drafted by the New York Jets, but honestly, when you look at his career there, you know, Robbie Anderson was one of those guys. He came out of college and he was the speedster. He was just the fast guy, the deep ball threat, and it shows. You know, he basically, for most of his career, has a 15-yard average per reception. So guy's going to get the ball down the field. He's fast. But the thing is he is 6'3". So that is quite different than, you know, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They're fast, but, you know, they're 5'10" and all that. So I love those two. But Robbie Anderson is 6'3". So it brings a different dynamic when you have a player like that, where he can stretch the field, but is also taller than a lot of the cornerbacks in the league. You know, so you have that guy that you can kind of throw the ball up to, and it gives you that different dynamic. So when we had Devontae Parker, some of the plays that he made were obviously in the red zone where you could throw it up to him and he would just come down with the ball. Same thing with Gesicki. And I think that's why we got Robbie Anderson, is that he kind of has those same similarities where, you know, obviously Gesicki is a little taller than Robbie, but Robbie Anderson is much faster than Gesicki and Devontae Parker, and he has that ability to go up and go get the ball. Here's what I'm going to say. So when he was on the New York Jets, his 4 years there, he had the first year, he had 42 receptions for 587 yards and 2 touchdowns, 14 yards per average. And then the next year, he had 63 receptions for 941 yards, almost 15 yards average, and 7 touchdowns. The next year, he had 50, 752 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And then the year after that, 52, 779 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Again, 15 yards per average. So when he was on the Jets, he was actually a really productive player, and we probably have a lot of those games where we played him and he went down the field. I remember a couple of them. So when he had that, he was basically on the verge of breaking out, and then he did do that. So he was let go to Carolina. I don't remember if he was traded or if he was released or whatever it may be, but he goes to Carolina, and then he racks up 95 receptions for 1,096 yards and 3 touchdowns. What I can say too is that Carolina has been kind of a dumpster fire for a little bit. So doing something like that is incredible, but also, you know, if you are the only talented player on the team, you're going to get the handful of receptions. That's just the way that it works. And then the next year, he goes for 519 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then obviously this last year, we didn't really hear about him too much. So there are 2 contradicting things that go with this. So basically, we could all chalk it up to that he's getting older, he's declining, and, you know, it's one of those things that every player has to deal with once they get older. But honestly, if you look at his play and the quarterbacks that he had to play with, it kind of just, you know, it was hard for him to really get acquainted with any of the offenses this last year. You know, most of his years he has over 500 yards, which if he does that this year with our team, that is a successful year. You know, Trent Sherfield had just about that many yards. I think he had a little less. So having 500 and something yards this year and a couple touchdowns, that's going to be amazing. But what we can look at is for about half of his career, he had over 750 yards and basically 3 touchdowns every single year for half of his career. When he had a quarterback that could get him the ball, he did well. When he didn't, he didn't do well. So, with the Carolina and the Arizona thing, Carolina hasn't had a quarterback since Cam Newton. And even towards the end, Cam Newton couldn't really throw the ball. Arizona, obviously Kyler Murray, but he stays injured and, complains about a lot of stuff. And they had a lot of good receivers on that team. Rondale Moore, you have DeAndre Hopkins, you had... I'm blanking on the other one. Marquise Brown. You had a lot of players that it was hard for him to see the field as well. So when you get a guy like this, yes, of course, you could say the decline. But what I can say is that, honestly, I really do see him having a really good year. I think he is going to really surprise a lot of us. And I was saying Braxton Berrios, but I think he gives you that slight Devontae Parker edge where you finally have that tall receiver that can get you some yards down the field. And also, he's just as fast as the rest of our team. Obviously, Tyreek and Waddle are the fastest, but, Robbie can really stretch the field as well, which brings a lot of relaxation for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, whereas now you have another guy that can stretch the field. So, one, obviously, if you're trying to double team both of them, Robbie Anderson is going to run down the field as well, or you have to get Robbie Anderson, and one of those two, their route running is ridiculous, so they get open. He brings an extra option to this offense that I think people are not really estimating to be great, but I really do think this was going to be probably one of the best receiver signings. I feel bad for Izukama, but I think he'll have a role, but I really do think Robbie Anderson is going to take that number 3, and I think, with his statistics and with his skill sets, he can really make this offense better because, again, Trent Sherfield ran a 4.5, was not that fast. Possession receiver, kind of similar to Devontae Parker, but a little bit quicker. Because basically what we're trying to do with our offense is separate the defense and spread them out so that you have open lanes. And I think he gives you that by how fast he is and how big he is, that you have to cover him. You have to make sure that he is accounted for every time, which gives a little more running room for Waddle and Tyreek Hill, or, Devon Achane in the backfield. I think he's going to be an excellent addition to this offense. Hope you liked this video. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and as always, have a great rest of your day. Fins up, baby. Peace.